Hey, what is up everybody? It's Animac here for Anime Uproar, and Demon Slayer Season 3 is finally here. And we're moving from the Entertainment District arc into the Swordsmith Village arc and beyond. We are also meeting all of the upper demon moons, and the story is quickly advancing towards its epic climax. So let's talk about the time skip that occurs between the Entertainment District arc and the Swordsmith Village arc. Let's talk about what's going to happen next, and let's talk about everything else you need to know for Demon Slayer Season 3. You guys know the drill. If you enjoy our Demon Slayer content and you want us to keep it going with many more Demon Slayer videos, please leave that like and leave a comment right now. It only takes you a second, but it helps us with that YouTube algorithm. And did you know that well over 50% of the people who regularly watch our videos haven't taken the time to subscribe? Subscribing on YouTube is completely free and it directly supports the channel, so do me a big favor and subscribe right now. Finally, this video will contain Demon Slayer manga spoilers. I will not be spoiling the end of the Swordsmith Village arc, but I will be talking about the setup and the background info for this arc, so some of that stuff will be revealed. With that said, proceed with caution, you have been warned. Now, Demon Slayer Season 2 ended off with our heroes defeating Upper Moon 6, Daki, and Gyutaro. After that, we saw that Upper Moon 3, Akaza, was summoned to Muzan's Infinity Castle, and he instantly knew the reason for his summoning. An upper rank Demon Moon was just killed by the Demon Slayers, and so Muzan needs to meet with all of the remaining Upper Moons, including Akaza. But what is the Infinity Castle? Essentially, this is Muzan's hidden secret base, and it is located inside a different dimension, kind of like a pocket dimension that is separate from the rest of the world. This pocket dimension is designed to look like a massive traditional Japanese castle. But it's not an ordinary castle, because traditional laws of physics and gravity don't apply here. It's almost like being inside a surrealist painting of a Japanese castle, where up is down and left is right and the floor is on the ceiling. The Infinity Castle was actually created by the blood demon art of Nakime, a biwa-playing female demon. Nakime sits at the center of this massive structure, and she manipulates the castle by playing her biwa. She can change and shift the positions of the rooms and walls and pillars inside of the castle. And she can even weaponize the castle against her enemies by turning parts of it into weapons which she can use to attack. The Infinity Castle is a top secret location which is normally used solely by Nakime and Muzan, and it is only rarely visited by the Demon Moons when Muzan decides to summon them. After the death of Upper Moon 6, the first Upper Moon to be defeated in 113 years, Muzan decides that he must summon the remaining Upper Moons in order to discuss this troubling news and come up with a new action plan for destroying the Demon Slayers and the Hashira. Akaza is the last to arrive inside the Infinity Castle, and the first demon he spots is Nakime herself. She is not an Upper Moon at this point in time, but as I said earlier, she is the one who creates and controls the castle. Akaza then comes across a porcelain vase with flowers painted on it, but this is no ordinary vase. It actually talks to Akaza, and then suddenly a djinn-like creature emerges from the vase, and this creature is revealed to be Upper Moon 5, Gyoko. Gyoko is a grotesque creature with two mouths where his eyes should be, and an eye in his mouth and on his forehead. He also has like these tiny little arms popping out randomly from his body. There is a lot to be said about this extremely creepy demon, and I've got a whole video on him dropping soon here on the channel, so definitely subscribe for that and turn the notifications on. After Gyoko, Akaza meets a short demon who looks like a tiny old man and who just seems super jittery and cowardly. This is upper rank 4 Hantengu, and he is a fascinating demon as well, so I'll be dropping a whole video on him too. Then we meet Upper Moon 2 Doma, possibly the most messed up demon of them all. And this guy is so interesting that I've already made an entire video about him, and that link is in the description. The various Upper Moons then greet each other, although Akaza doesn't really greet them back because he dislikes all of them, and he especially hates Doma. When Doma casually places his arm on Akaza, Akaza punches Doma in the jaw without a second thought. We are then introduced to Upper Moon 1 Kokushibo, and soon after Muzan himself arrives. Muzan announces that Upper Rank 6 Gyutaro is dead, which means that the Upper Moon ranks are now incomplete. Muzan believes that Gyutaro lost because Daki was a hindrance to him, but Gyutaro foolishly continued to cling to her instead of just fighting for himself. Muzan says that the Upper Moons are failing in the order of who has the most human parts remaining, and he calls them worthless. They have failed to eradicate the Demon Slayers and the Ubuyashiki family, and they have also failed to find the legendary Blue Spider Lily despite searching for it for hundreds of years. Muzan says that he doesn't even know why the Upper Moons still exist, and the demons immediately express their regret for their failures and ask for forgiveness from Muzan. Muzan hates change because change is synonymous with mortality. That is why Gyutaro's death and this shift in the Upper Moon rankings disturbs him so profoundly. Muzan likes that which is permanent and unchanging, and he wants to find a way to reach a perfect unchanging state of immortality. But his life will always be at risk until he destroys all the Demon Slayers and the Ubuyashiki clan and finally conquers the sun. Gyoko states that he has some important information that will aid in Muzan's cause, and Muzan instructs him to go to a certain place with Hantengu as soon as he confirms that the information is correct. After Doma tries to convince Gyoko to let him come too, he is once again attacked by Akaza for attempting to question Lord Muzan's instructions. But then Akaza's left arm is cut off in a flash by Kokushibo. Even though Doma doesn't mind Akaza's attacks, Upper Moon 1 is concerned that Akaza is going too far. Akaza's blatant attacks on a higher ranked demon could create cracks in the hierarchy of the Upper Moons. Kokushibo tells Akaza that if he doesn't like the current rankings, then he can request blood combat in order to try and replace either Doma or himself by killing them. Otherwise, he must respect the hierarchy. Doma says that it's all in good fun because Akaza has no chance of defeating the two of them. But Akaza vows to Kokushibo that he is definitely going to defeat him, and Upper Moon 1 encourages Akaza to try. Gyoko and Hantengu are then sent out on their secret mission, and the other Upper Moons are sent on their way by Nakime. This brief meeting of the Upper Moons and Muzan is incredibly valuable in terms of the insight it gives us on the remaining Upper Moons, including their personalities and the type of relationships that they have with each other and with Muzan. Akaza clearly doesn't like any of the other Demon Moons, especially Doma, and his goal is to kill the strongest so that he can become the strongest. He doesn't care about rules or hierarchy, he just wants to be number one. Kokushibo, the current number one, is just the opposite. He cares deeply about order and hierarchy, and he wants to maintain it. Doma is just an absolute sociopath who pretends like the other demons are his friends, but in reality he doesn't care for them at all, and he loves teasing and mocking them, especially Akaza. Gyoko is anxious to please Muzan and to prove his loyalty and usefulness. Hantengu presents himself as a feeble and jittery old man, but that of course is a facade. And Nakime is quiet and calm, and she dutifully obeys Muzan's instructions, but she's also smart enough to know that she should stay as far away from Doma as possible. This scene also gives us important insight into Muzan's state of mind. As I mentioned earlier, he is obsessed with immortality and ensuring that he and the demonic system that he established will be permanent and eternal. On the one hand, he is both overpowered and full of himself. He's an egomaniac. He thinks he is better and stronger than everyone else. But on the other hand, he is terrified of change and death, and this fear drives most of his actions. In order to truly understand Muzan's character, you have to understand this inner contradiction that he is constantly dealing with. Now let's talk about Tanjiro's dream, because this dream, or should I say this ancestral memory, is critical for understanding Season 3 and the rest of the series. In this dream, we see a figure holding a baby as tea and rice cakes are served to him. This figure looks a lot like the demon Kokushibo from behind, but this is in fact the figure that Daki saw back when she was fighting Tanjiro. She saw him because during the fight, Muzan's own DNA was reminded of the man that Muzan fears the most, the original Breath of the Sun user, Yoriichi Tsugikuni. The scene in which Yoriichi is holding the baby takes place some 500 years ago, during the Sengoku period of Japanese history. But if this scene is taking place 500 years ago, then why does the man who is talking to Yoriichi and serving him tea look almost exactly like Tanjiro, but just a slightly older version of Tanjiro? That is because this man's name is Sumiyoshi, and he is the direct ancestor of Tanjiro Kamado. We are not sure if Sumiyoshi's last name is also Kamado, or if the last name changed over the centuries. Sumiyoshi says to Yoriichi that he and his wife and child owe their very lives to him. So presumably Yoriichi saved them from a demon attack. But in this moment, Yoriichi feels depressed, and he tells Sumiyoshi that he is a man without value who was unable to accomplish even one thing that he should have in this life. Sumiyoshi refuses to accept this kind of talk from Yoriichi, and he vows that even though he is just a humble charcoal seller, he will tell his children and grandchildren about Yoriichi and his great deeds. Sumiyoshi will eventually teach his children the dance of the fire god, and they will teach their children until this dance is passed all the way down to Tanjiro. And what is this dance of the fire god? It is none other than the original Breath of the Sun. Tanjiro then wakes up in a hospital bed. After the battle against Daki and Gyutaro, Tanjiro had been unconscious for 2 months. So 2 months have already passed since the final events of Demon Slayer Season 2. When Tanjiro wakes up, Kanao is there to greet him, and she smiles and says that she's glad that Tanjiro is finally awake. By the time Tanjiro wakes up, Zenitsu is already out on another mission, although he went reluctantly since he's not a big fan of danger. Tengen Uzui was of course injured during the fight, but he is alive and well, and he is being cared for by his 3 hot ninja wives, so, I'm sure he'll be fine. As for Inosuke, his condition was extremely serious for a time because poison got deep inside his body. But he managed to recover because he has an abnormally strong tolerance for poison. Poison just doesn't work on him as it does on a normal person, although neither does medicine, so it's a bit of a trade-off. That said, Inosuke did manage to fully recover, and he woke up about a week before Tanjiro. He is now already up and running and jumping and clinging to the ceiling and all the usual Inosuke stuff. A week after this, Tanjiro recovers enough to get back on his feet. Meanwhile, Inosuke is also sent out on a mission just like Zenitsu was. While undergoing some extremely painful physical therapy, Tanjiro asks whether a new katana was delivered for him while he was asleep, because as we know, his sword was damaged during the fight against Upper Moon 6. Unfortunately for Tanjiro, his swordsmith, Haganezuka, got mad that Tanjiro damaged his sword again, and he refused to send a new one. Instead, he sent a bunch of angry letters cursing Tanjiro for his mistreatment of swords. And so, finding himself without a working katana, Tanjiro has to visit the Swordsmith village in order to procure a new sword. However, the Swordsmith village is not an ordinary village. Its location is a tightly guarded secret. Hardly anyone knows where the village is, even within the Demon Slayer Corps. When Tanjiro makes the journey to the village, he is escorted there by masked kakushi or attendants. He is blindfolded so that he can't see where he is going, his ears are plugged so that he can't hear his surroundings, and even his nose is plugged because he has a sensitive nose that could possibly give him hints about where they're going. He is then carried on the back of a kakushi, but only part of the way. An entire relay team of kakushi divide up the route to the Swordsmith village, and only the final kakushi actually knows where the village is. The kakushi are guided by crows, but both the crows and the kakushi are often changed. And even the routes by which the village is reached are also changed regularly. The Demon Slayer Corps goes through all this trouble to keep the Swordsmith village hidden because it is such an important component of their overall organization. and so they must prevent Muzan and the demons from finding it. When Tanjiro finally arrives at the village, he learns that both the love Hashira Mitsuri Kanroji and the mist Hashira Muichiro Tokito are also there, as is Genya Shinazugawa, the younger brother of the wind Hashira Sanemi. Since Tanjiro still hasn't fully recovered, he hopes that he can recoup his strength inside the village and enjoy the hot springs while waiting for his new katana to be completed. But unfortunately for Tanjiro and all the demon slayers and swordsmiths within the Swordsmith village, remember that information that Gyoko said he had for Muzan? Yeah, it was actually the secret location of the Swordsmith village. This means that two upper moons, Gyoko and Hantengu, are about to invade the Swordsmith village. So that is what happened during the time skip between the end of the Entertainment District arc and the beginning of the Swordsmith village arc. And that is the setup for the main conflict of this season. More than 2 months passed between the two arcs, and for most of the time Tanjiro was unconscious. Inosuke and Zenitsu are currently away on other missions, so they will not be featured in this arc. But Tanjiro and Nezuko are here, as are Mitsuri, Muichiro, Genya, and 2 of the 6 upper moons. This arc is going to be epic and tragic and so much more, so do not miss it. And don't forget to subscribe to Anime Uproar so you don't miss any of our regular Demon Slayer content. There is a lot more coming. If you're looking for something to watch next, check out our video on 101 secrets in Demon Slayer. It's a great way to test your knowledge of Demon Slayer and get caught up on all the facts as you get into Season 3. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, leave a quick like right now to help us with that YouTube algorithm. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys!